What do I know about the U.S. incarceration system? How much time do we have?
There's the stat that's always thrown around about, how we only have 5% of the world's population, but we jail about 25% of the world's population.
So something like 2.3 million people behind bars right now. They leave behind 7 million children. The effects are devastating.
Well, I know that it's a problem and that the United States of America basically has more people incarcerated than most industrial nations combined.
I know that it's used to house a vast majority of young black men or black men in general, or black people in general. And I also know that it came into effect with Bill Clinton and his war on poverty and crime. And I think Reagan too. But mostly just through politics, black people were used as a scapegoat to incarcerate them in a way that was institutional without it being as outright as Jim Crow.
It's huge. There's a lot of people who are in jail, in prison. It's even bigger when you calculate the number of people who are on parole or probation. It's even bigger when you calculate the number of families that are directly affected by incarceration.
What we're talking about is racism, a system that's unfair, and a set of laws that were actually set up for a particular purpose, which was to be obstacles for a certain community to thrive.
So we incarcerate more people at a higher rate than any other developed nation on earth. So we're number one, yay us, okay?
The thing about the prison system is the impacts it has are so profound that I don't think we really understand half of them yet, or know about half of them. And the ones that we know about, I don't think we really understand entirely.
Racially, the incarceration rates are totally messed up. So over half the people behind bars are people of color.
If you look at how the economy is affected by incarceration, especially in rural areas that have lost a lot of their industry before the prison moved in, you can look at racism, sexism, sexual violence, and any kind of criminal behavior and how the prison industry actually enhances it.
105 years after the creation of NAACP, we're still fighting for just people's regular dignity and whatnot, but I think African peoples all over the world are still being denied that dignity and respect that we deserve.
There's a complete stigmatization of people who've been in prison once they're released. So, in some places they can't vote. It's really hard to find housing, it's really hard to find jobs. It's hard to re-enter a community, not only because you're stigmatized, but because you're so used to what a prison is like that it's hard to remember what the rest of the world is like.
Like, what about the psychos who love killing people? There are people who are extremely dangerously violent, are extreme hazards to themselves and the people around them. A prison doesn't really address that issue within that person or within the people they're interacting with. Oftentimes they can exacerbate the kind of psychosis and issues that lead to that behavior in the first place.
I think, it's a legacy of the hierarchy that America has set in place since the days of slavery.
I feel like it's definitely something that needs to be changed, not only because it affects me, but affects larger society. A lot of the issues that continue to happen are based on people's perception of guilt or blame or shame, and then the adverse of who's being targeted.
You can even look at incarceration as just a system of control and a system like the police that is designed to kind of uphold the status quo.
This is not the America that I want.
No, I think the conversation is a really big conversation, and it does have to do with our education system. We wouldn't have so many of our youth getting caught up in the criminal system if our education system had treated them better, I respected them as youth, I respected their culture.
Prisons tend to be pretty invisible to a lot of society. People don't know a lot about prisons. Oftentimes we don't think a lot about prisons. That's that people don't see people who are incarcerated really as human. And you listen to conversations there, monsters or criminals or whatever, but they're not addressed as human beings, and the issue isn't addressed as one of a human issue. A lot of times it's addressed as an issue of money, how much money we spend on incarceration, which is a big issue, but people then forget about the humans that are part of that. They're not just dollar signs. Just like students on this campus aren't just dollar signs.
Been looking at incarceration in many ways as war against certain communities.
I think it's being talked about more, especially in the current state of what is going on in the country right now. I think one of the biggest issues people are starting to realize is that, wow, black people typically, especially black men, used to be like the saying would go like they're all in jail. But at this point, from my perspective, they can't even make it there. So I think that's becoming a bigger issue in terms of like they can't even make it to where they're stereotyped as being at. And I think the fact that so many people are talking about it because of the recent killings, that's spreading awareness.
There's a growing sense of awareness that it's not working. And so Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, I think has been really important to bring the issue to the public in a way that's accessible and that makes sense. I know her book was important for me to realize, like, wait a minute. Yeah. I'm amazed at times at how aware our campus community is around issues. And I'm impressed with the activism and the passion and the intelligence and the critical thinking.
I'm actually really proud to be going to University of Oregon as far as how involved we are with prison issues.
It took me a while, Obviously, I'm a white middle-aged man. I'm in like every privilege category that you can think of. And I began reading and just kind of poking around on my own.
I would say I first started learning about it just at home through my parents. I feel like a lot of parents with children of color kind of already know to, pre-warn them of some of the societal things that are going to happen to them because of their color.
Involved with a lot of social justice stuff on campus. I'm an intern for the Inside Out Prison Exchange program, which helps bring inside students or inmates and outside students from colleges together in a shared classroom experience. I didn't know anything about incarceration before I took the class, before I actually went to a prison, and I think that's why it's been so powerful for me.
I am an alum of the U of O, and I still do a lot of volunteer work with the Inside Out program at the University of Oregon. So I work with a handful of students. I work with the Eugene School District, but I am the assistant teacher in the juvenile detention facility.
Be there for my community, and there was just a need in the NAACP right now because we're going through a generational change, especially in the black community, where we really do need some of the younger generation to pick up the torch.
Currently a co-director for BSU this year. I would say more indirectly than broadly, just because we're not an outright political organization, but I feel like the discussions that we have and the meetings we plan around race and politics definitely help to spread awareness of the issues going on in the country.
So I'm educating myself, first and foremost. I'm part of the UO Criminal Justice Network and UO Beyond War. Criminal Justice Network was really a way to bring people together to kind of network different ideas related to incarceration. We put on a few events around campus. One that was kind of big was related to solitary confinement.
At least in the University of Oregon campus, I feel like every single time I have a conversation with someone about the criminal justice system, you see a change. I'm not trying to change anyone's political views, but if they can at least see those inside prison as human, I think that's a good first step.
So I'm helping guide a group of students, and we're evaluating the City of Eugene Teen Court program, it's a diversion program for first-time youthful offenders. I can help people think about these things differently and hopefully affect change.
So basically, it does take the students caring about the issue and feeling like that they can give their time. So this is myself, I'm a volunteer, and so I give my time to the NAACP. And really, our community, coming from where we are, if we don't give of ourselves, then we don't have much.
I do feel like I have a role to play in the future based on my privileged stance as an African American in higher education.
After I graduate, I'm going to be moving to New York, and I'm going to be a part of an organization called City Year, which helps at-risk youth, and you kind of take on a mentoring and tutoring role. And that's something that I've grown really passionate about by being involved with Inside Out. I will always be an advocate. I can't not be.
I mean, most of what I'm thinking about is really just preventing the base problems that lead to incarceration in the first place. An ideal incarceration system would be one that doesn't need to exist at all.
There needs to be a complete revamp of the justice system. It's not really a justice system at this point. It's a punishment system. And it's a way to keep punishing people for the rest of their life, not just while they're in a prison.
So I think there is some kind of push towards restorative justice. But the thing that's driving our prison reform right now, and it's not elegant, but hey, I'll take it, it's budgets. And so we're starting to see some sentencing reforms. California is an example. You know, they're re-examining their 3 strikes and you're out law. California's also under a federal order to depopulate their prisons because they're operating over capacity.
I think an ideal incarceration system is one that is short-term, small as can be, and highly centered in local communities.
It means relooking how we think of education, how we think about welfare in this country, how we think about human rights. Angela Davis talks about, and she has this book, Are Prisons Obsolete? And, you know, a lot of people will say that they're prison abolitionists, and I'm a prison abolitionist. She sees the alternative to incarceration as flooding communities, flooding, you know, this country and the planet really with the resources that people need. I think once we kind of deal with the issue of us versus them, and thinking of a certain population in our society as disposable or not worthy of compassion or second chances, and start looking at why people are swept up in this system and who this system benefits. And then to get back to Angela Davis, to just create a world where people have what they need and people are met with respect and love and kindness. So it's a big goal. But
Honestly, hoping that as people learn and are educated about these things, this is not just a thing that is brushed off.
Some people say that education isn't enough, but I think it's a really vital step to making change in the world.
I think that yes, this is something that we need to talk about because there's many avenues into the prison pipeline, and we've got to block them all off, and it starts right here on campus for sure. I think instead of like just incarcerating our kids, we have to start talking to our kids, we start educating our kids, we have to start spending more time and money on our kids. Right. Because when we put them in prison, it's going to cost money to keep them in there. So why don't spend the money beforehand? We need programs that really just touches people one-on-one in the cities where they're at and gives them help up so that they can just be individuals and grow as individuals, which will help the community. I think we need more unity. We need to care more about each other. You know, the idea of it takes a village, but it takes a family and it takes a community to really care about one another and start working inside our communities. So the problem lies outside, but I think the solution is inside.
And I am optimistic, and I don't know how fast or how slow it'll be, but I think change is going to happen. It has to happen.